What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey, still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. If you don't like it, you can have that seatbelt.
So this is a theory that, for some reason, even well after the Switch 2 has been shown, and we've seen the games, we've seen the price point of the system, we've seen what the Switch 2 can do, for some reason, this is still apparently a thing. So there's still people out there that think that the T239 chip that powers the Nintendo Switch 2 was really a chip aimed at a supposed Nintendo Switch Pro that Nintendo repurposed into the Nintendo Switch 2. And that's the real reason why the chip was leaked so long ago and all this stuff. Yeah. But anyway, before we get things started here, we are still on the road to 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. If you're interested in Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch 2 Insight, and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, and let me know what you think in the comments section. So, even after seeing the Switch 2, seeing what it could do, seeing the graphics, seeing the price, seeing all the things we've seen about the Switch 2, there are still people, for some reason, that are hanging on to the idea that this chip was originally designed for a Nintendo Switch Pro. Now, if you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know that I was pretty much the main person telling you that a Switch Pro would probably never come out, and I was right. Now, the reason why I knew that it either wasn't going to come out or wasn't going to come out anytime soon around the time that these rumors started was two reasons. One, the fact that I hadn't heard anything, and that was around the time where I was hearing a lot of things early. And two, I hadn't found anything remotely that pointed towards that possibility. Now, at the time, people probably thought, oh man, he's just being cocky and just because he didn't hear anything. Well, as I've proven after that video where I called that out, I told you that once information started to actually come out of Nintendo's next generation console, that I would be among the first people to find information, and I didn't disappoint. From the Switch 2 using Orin and Ampere, to DLSS confirmation, to backwards compatibility confirmation, and yeah, the rest is history. So when I tell you, if I don't hear about something or if I didn't find something and it's Nintendo related, it's probably either not happening anytime soon or it's not happening at all, because my search game is top tier. And maybe now you guys finally believe me on that. But anyway, so people, the thought process is that originally this chip was aimed at a Switch Pro, but due to the pandemic, Nintendo changed their mind and they just repurposed this Switch Pro chip to be the next Nintendo console. Now, I've even told you guys back then, even when these Switch Pro rumors were going around and I was hearing people's expectations for a supposed Switch Pro, that what you guys were hoping for out of a Switch Pro was pretty much just a Switch 2. Like, it was a next generation console. That's what your hopes pretty much were. What your expectations aligned with was pretty much a next generation console. Now, if a Switch Pro had ever materialized, it wouldn't have been anything like what you guys are hoping. So, when the Nintendo Switch OLED came out, what a lot of people don't realize is that in the Switch OLED's dock, which used a new dock that was different from the original Switch, that dock was found to actually be capable of 4K display resolution. But Nintendo decided to lock that out. So a lot of people were thinking, oh, well, that proves right there. That's what the Switch Pro was gonna be. Now, if there was an actual Switch Pro that came out, like I said, it wouldn't have been anything like the Switch 2. This is the most you could have possibly expected out of a Switch Pro. OLED screen, which we got. More storage, which we got. A new dock, which we got. But except with the capability to display, not render, display Switch games at 4K resolution for 4K TVs. But there was no way that a supposed Switch Pro would ever use the Tegra T239. The Tegra 239. There's no way it would have used that chip. The most you would have gotten was the same exact chips that run in the regular Switch, but higher clocks. Now when the first Switch 2 revision came out and people saw that it was on a smaller process node, a more efficient node, people assumed wrongly that Nintendo was going to be a more powerful Switch and it was going to run the games faster and all this stuff. And I told everybody that, pump your brakes. They're going to use this for a better battery. And that's exactly what they did. Now, with this mythical Switch Pro, they could have potentially, instead of battery life, they could have potentially used those efficiency gains to have a faster running system, slightly faster running system, and the games would have performed a little bit better. But also probably would have had a worse battery life because, because the efficiency gains would have gone to overclocking the system pretty much. Now, Nintendo, if this is what their line of thinking, ultimately and intelligently decided that this was a complete waste of time and decided to not even overclock the system and not allow the new Switch dock, the OLED dock, to display 4K. And the reason why that was smart of them to do, if that was indeed the case, is because, as we've seen with these mid-gen upgrades, they just make, when the new system comes out, way less impressive. Like, I made a video on this before the PlayStation 5 came out, telling you guys that due to the PlayStation 4 Pro and especially the Xbox One X, that due to those upgrades, that people, once the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S came out, that you were going to be less impressed because there was already a mid jump in the middle, and that makes the new system less impressive. And that seems to be the reasoning that Nintendo, if they were even thinking about releasing a Pro or releasing at least a system that was capable of displaying 4K before the Switch 2, that's the reason probably why they decided against it. Because that never came out, the jump from the regular Switch to the Switch 2 is even more massive. Now, there's actually a smoking gun reason why I know and can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that the chip powering the Switch 2 was never even considered for a Switch Pro. And it's actually very basic. It's a very basic idea. It's a very basic fact that none of you have thought about. So, the reasoning for that, the reasoning that I know, is because of one thing: backwards compatibility. Now, if you guys have been following Switch 2 discussion over the last few years, you know that there were a lot of people that thought that the Switch 2 potentially would not have backwards compatibility with the Nintendo Switch 1. Now, I've said from the beginning that no matter what, no matter what Nintendo had to do, that the Switch 2 was going to have backwards compatibility with the Switch 1, and I was right. But Nintendo has confirmed since the Switch 2 was announced that there were issues in bringing Switch 1 titles to be played on the Switch 2, and that it wasn't a cut and dry emulation thing here. They had to go a unique route and able to get Switch games to run on the Switch 2. Now that right there should tell you that there's no way that this chip was designed originally for a Switch Pro. Because why would Nintendo go out of their way to pick a chip that has trouble running Switch games to make it a Switch Pro? Like, just think about that for 1 second. There's no way they would have gone through the trouble of picking a chip and designing a chip that had trouble running Switch games to be a Switch Pro. Add to the fact that you guys really think that, okay, the Switch Pro was rumored to come out around what? 2020, 2021? Dude, the Xbox Series S and X came out in 2020, the end of 2020. You guys really think that Nintendo would have been able to come out with a hybrid console that gave you graphics similar to the Xbox Series S in 2021 at a reasonable cost? No. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section.